Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Get Woke Go Broke has come for Sony, and Sony rightfully deserves it. The stuff that Sony was putting out recently with Spider-Man 2, and especially you guys know the whole story about The Last of Us 2 and whatnot, we're seeing prime examples of what happens when they basically gave fans what they didn't want, right? A lot of people bought a Spider-Man game to play as Spider-Man. They didn't want to actually play as Miles Morales. If they wanted to play as Miles Morales, they would have bought the actual Miles Morales game. Same thing with Last of Us Part 2. Last of Us Part 2, they wanted to play as Joel. You didn't really get that option, and then Joel ends up getting fucking destroyed by some sort of like tranny superwoman, super Hulk girl. I really don't know.
Full of the exaggerated swagger of a black teen.
So now we have an article here from Bounding Into Comics with a headline that reads, Sony announces cut of 900 PlayStation employees, Marvel Spider-Man 2 and The Last of Us Studios among those affected. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not too shocked that Spider-Man 2 is one of the studios that are affected, considering what they did with the actual game. Not to say that Spider-Man 2 was a bad game. It's just not what fans actually wanted. We know that the majority of fans want to play as actual Spider-Man, Peter Parker. Not many people want to play as Miles Morales. You can look at the sales figures between Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man Miles Morales, and you will see a drastic difference in sales. Even though they were both available on the same consoles, they still, Spider-Man 1 completely destroyed sales compared to Spider-Man 2. It wasn't even close. It says, in the latest case of video game developer being forced to reduce their workforce after failing to adequately realize their own overzealous expansion plans, Sony has announced that their PlayStation division will soon be saying goodbye to roughly 900 of their colleagues from across the globe. Sony, standing as the latest entity to suffer a staffing hit amidst the industry's ongoing wave of layoffs, was first confirmed on the morning of January 27th, courtesy of a message first shared internally to employees before later being made available to the public via an official company blog post penned by Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO Jim Ryan. It says, the PlayStation community means everything to us. I'm sure it does. So I felt it was very important to update you on a difficult day at our company, explained Ryan in introduction to the public blog post. We have made the extremely hard decision to announce our plan to commence a reduction of our overall headcount globally by about 8% or 900 people, subject to local law and consultation processes. Employees across the globe, including our studios, are impacted. Now, listen, it's never a good thing when people lose their jobs, okay? Never is a good thing, no matter how much you may hate them. At the end of the day, these people are doing what their bosses tell them to do, and I know that's a terrible excuse for them because a lot of them believe in the ideology that their bosses are pushing on them, so they are at fault as much as the bosses are. But still, it sucks when you lose your job, and I get that, but unfortunately for them, they are working for a company that has little by little chosen ideology over actually giving the fans what they want. It says these are incredibly talented people who have been part of our success, and we are very grateful for their contributions, he added. However, the industry has changed immensely, and we need to future ready ourselves to set the business up for what lies ahead. We need to deliver on expectations from developers and gamers and continue to propel future technology in gaming. So we took a step back to ensure we are set up to continue bringing the best gaming experiences to the community. So every time I read articles or statements from CEOs when it comes down to mentioning downsizing, they always try to make it sound as super positive as possible. You know what I mean? You got to imagine that the employees that are reading this stuff that just recently lost their job, watching their CEO make some bullshit perfect statement while he sits comfortably in his mansion. It just never sits right with me. But this is how corporate America is. It says, to this end, Ryan revealed in his internal message that in addition to the aforementioned global staffing cuts, this company restructuring would also specifically result in the complete closure of PlayStation's London studio, perhaps best known for their work on SingStar series, and significant reductions at Horizon Call of the Mountain VR developer Firesprite Studio. In a separate blog post, head of PlayStation Studios head Hermit Hultz confirmed that these layoffs would also affect Marvel Spider-Man 2 developer Insomniac Games, The Last of Us series developer Naughty Dog, and Sony's technology, creative, and supportive teams. Now, these are the two that I would expect to get hit the most because, I mean, listen, these other ones, I don't really know what these are. I don't know if anybody that truly cares about VR right now. I know they're trying to push it and they keep trying to push it, but ultimately, I feel like this is where the money is. This is where people are actually going to focus on. And Marvel Spider-Man 2 was a game that just didn't do nowhere near as well as it should have. And they got a lot of flack. It got a lot of backlash online for a couple of different reasons. Obviously, the fact that they forced you to play as Miles Morales is a big one. They also basically made Mary Jane god-awfully ugly. They also made her way too prominent in the gameplay scenes. Like, nobody wanted to play as Mary Jane. She was also the most OP character. She could one-shot people. Mind you, Spider-Man would have to beat up someone 10, 20 punches before knocking him out. And Mary Jane would come here with a stun gun and be like, boop, done. You know, so it's just little things like that that was annoying people. Ultimately, though, it wasn't a bad game. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that Spider-Man 2 is a bad game. It just wasn't what people had hopes for, and it wasn't what people wanted overall, at least not on a grand scale. It says, we have brought brilliant and successful studios into our family, said Holtz. We have invested in new technology and partnerships. We have recruited talent from across our industry and beyond, but growth itself is not an ambition. Again, he's trying to make it sound super positive, but, you know, shit like this, you guys already know what this is, right? This is when they made Aloy have a gay relationship in the DLC. They waited till after the main game sold and was a hot hit before they added some gay shit to it. It really is just dumb. It says, further, the studio head confirmed that as part of these staffing shakeups, we looked at our studios and our portfolio, evaluating projects in various stages of development, and have decided that some of those projects will not move forward. Unfortunately for those curious, both Holtz and Sony have yet to provide details as to which titles have now found themselves on the cutting room floor. So again, it looks like they're going to stop bringing out certain games. They're not going to tell you what it is right now, obviously, because they don't want to actually start a fucking forest fire with this. But still, this is no different. A lot of these tech companies are experiencing layoffs right now for a variety of different reasons. You want to blame wokeness? Go ahead. You want to blame mismanagement? Go ahead. I would probably blame that more than anything. But ultimately, it's just ideologues that are in charge, that are making terrible decisions, people who actually don't know what the fans want, people who are disconnected, it seems like, from what the fans want. Nobody actually wants to listen to what the fans are saying, because these people who are writing the games, these people who are creating the games, they feel like they know better than the fans of the games themselves. They feel like they know what to do with their product, and you might have a point to an extent, but I mean, you got to listen to what actually works for people. You have to listen to the fans and see what did they actually like about your first game before you come out with a sequel. If you come out with a sequel like The Last of Us 2 and you completely bastardize what you had in the first game, you can't sit there and be mad all of a sudden that people didn't want to support your game, or people talk trash about your game, or it's just not financially successful. You can't do that. You had every opportunity to listen to what the fans want. You had every opportunity to ask them what did they actually want in the sequel. You chose to ignore it. You chose to do what you wanted to do, because in this case, it was ideologically driven. And unfortunately for Neil Cuckman, it cost him quite a bit. It says Sony Interactive Entertainment staff cuts are but the latest in a string of layoffs currently sweeping across the Western video game industry. And that's what I was talking about before. You know, the Western video game industry right now is in the dumps, and it's experiencing quite a bit of losses, and rightfully so. A lot of these companies, you know, we make the memes all the times, guys. You know, we post it on Twitter. We talk about it on a Hypnocast every night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We do this because Western video game developers are a joke. Most of them are a joke. They are not trying to put out video games for the gamer. They're trying to put out video games for the corporation. That's the big difference. They're not trying to actually entertain the fans. They're trying to figure out ways to nickel and dime you with live action services while giving you a supposed quad A experience when we all know it's double A at best, and they're trying to sell you bullshit. This is the problem going on in the West. On top of the whole ideologically driven stuff like making women ugly and whatnot, they are doing things that are not gamer first, and now they're experiencing what happens to a company when you decide to do that. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it, and if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.